Wes from NewFrame here. Today, we're going to go over your brain's pain map, or in other words, how you begin to feel pain in your body. To do this, we need to ask the question, what does our body look like to our brain? Now, I know that might sound like an absolutely ridiculous question. Surely you could simply look in a mirror and see what your body looks like, right? However, our brain's map for our body looks a little different than how we look in a reflection. To highlight this, let's microscope into the brain and look at a section of our brain called the primary somatosensory cortex. Now, that sounds like a bunch of scientific mumbo jumbo if you ask me. So let's break it down. There are different parts of your brain that represent different parts of your body. And this somatosensory cortex represents how you feel in your body. And it kind of represents itself like this. As you can see, there's different sections that represent different parts of your body. And there are some sections that are bigger than the others. Well, why is that? You see, the more nerves we have in a specific area, the more space it takes in the brain. And this all relates to your pain as well. Let's take this for example. Have you ever gotten a paper cut? It freaking hurts. Now compare that same size cut to something that you get on your arm or your leg, say while you're walking through a briar patch, or what I called a pricker bush back in the day. Sure, it would hurt, but not nearly as long or for as long or as much as that paper cut would. And this is all because we have a higher density of nerves in our hands than we do for our upper leg, for example. Before we move on, let's return back to the picture for a second. Can you see how largely the hands, face, lips, and tongue are all represented? Well, artists have created another visualization to show you how our brains see our body. It's called the sensory homunculus, and to say the least, it's a little freaky looking. Here, let me show you real quick. Now, how does this all tie into your pain? Well, if we remember back to the 5 steps of how pain works, it plays a vital role in the output steps. Now, I know we went over this a while back, but let's kind of take an example real quick to get yourself a little bit reacquainted with the model. And we must use our favorite example, stepping on a nail. So if you were to accidentally step on a nail, the nerves in your foot would be alerted and start sending these danger signals up the nerve into the brain saying, danger, there's something sharp in the foot. And this is what we would call the input step. And this is the first step, because this is when your brain is getting, well, a bunch of inputs about what's going on. During this time, while your brain is receiving all these inputs, it needs to figure out what's going on and process all that information. Because in addition to receiving that danger message from those foot nerves, it's also receiving other inputs like your eyes sending those visual signals saying, look, there's something sticking in my foot. Or, your thought signals that are saying, I'm in a newly built house. I hope that isn't a nail. And maybe even signals from your nerves that say, I bet that wetness on my foot is blood. Now, during this time, your brain is taking all this information and, packaging it up to say, holy moly, I think we might have a nail in the foot. And this is the processing step because, well, your brain does a lot of processing. When your brain makes this subconscious epiphany about a nail being in your foot, it more likely than not is going to decide to protect you. And this is aptly named the decision part of the model. And then the brain will produce pain as an output in efforts to protect you, in addition to, some type of movement, like maybe looking to inspect your foot and checking for damage, and maybe even rubbing the foot to try to make it feel better. And this is what we would call the output step. Then the brain will make that area more sensitive over time to allow that area to heal. Over time, the body lays down enough tissue to heal your foot, and eventually you feel just fine. And this is called the adaptation step. The brain's pain map plays a major role in how our brains produce pain and receive danger signals. What happens with chronic pain is that affected body part goes through a period of disuse. If you're having a lot of pain in an area, especially for a long period of time, you'll just begin to avoid the use of that body part altogether and almost even try to distance yourself from it. Has anyone contemplated, cutting off that hurting body part? Well, that's your brain trying to distance itself from that hurting area. When this happens, that area on the primary somatosensory cortex begins to look a little bit smudged, you could say. You can think of it as someone kind of taking a cheap eraser over and then rubbing it all over that affected area and just smearing it around. This makes it more difficult for our brain to, one, locate the areas of those danger signals, say during the processing step, and two, produce pain in that affected area, like in the output step. And this can lead to some weird yet familiar results. If you've ever felt your pain randomly moving around, spreading, becoming diffuse and unlocalized, it could actually be from the smudging going on in your brain. But are you ready for the good news? All hope is not lost. You can help your brain get more familiar with that body part over time and help fix that smudging that's been going on. All you need to do is just help retrain your brain. Remember, our brains are plastic. They are malleable. They can grow and they can get more efficient. By working on different forms of imaging and working on laterality and progressing into some gentle movement, you can start to regain a lot of that function you've been missing in that affected body part. Now, I could talk for hours about this, but let's end it here for now. If you have any interest in learning more about this, consider joining the NewFrame program. NewFrame helps you take more actionable steps towards decreasing and helping your pain. And if you have any interest in that, please drop a comment down below. Until next time, take care.